you, Colin. Thank you, Grace. Yes, as Colin said, my name's Glenn and the Vicar at Nativity Anglican. I only just heard about Prayers One when I got an email from the Bishop's secretary asking if I would present for Blenheim. And when the Bishop sends you an email to do something, you say, yes, I will do that, Bishop. Thank you for the invite. So I'm really happy to be here, and I know for my own ministry over the years, personally, it's been sustained by people praying for me, my relatives, and those that I know in the faith as well. So it's exciting to hear that you guys exist and that you're praying for different regions and for us. So I'm really grateful for that. And for us, and I'll go into this a little bit as I present, but the timing of tonight is really amazing for us as well. And Barry's a parishioner at my church, and he's going to speak about a prayer event that we've got coming up this Sunday. And we've been really felt that we've been led by the Lord. Barry in particular has had this sense of a calling to this prayer event for a while, and we've been developing it. So it's amazing timing that in the week when this event's about to take place, we're able to present to you and get some prayer support for that. So that's amazing timing. I'm just going to talk to Nelson. So we're praying for the Nelson region as well. The Nelson representative wasn't able to make it tonight, but they have sent me some prayer points that they would like me to share on their behalf. And for us to be praying for them. So I'll just go through that, and then I'll go into some thoughts around Blenheim myself, then I'll hand over to Barry. So Nelson have asked us to pray for 3 points, and the first of which is the revitalisation process. So the Nelson Diocese covers the region on the west coast down to Greymouth, and on the east coast down to Kaikoura, and basically sort of straight through the South Island, so the top of the south really. And a couple of years ago, at one of our diocesan meetings, the bishop preached a sermon called "There's a Hole in Our Bucket," and the sense, I guess, that is in the West in the churches of that all the efforts we're trying to do in terms of evangelism and mission and that don't seem to be getting the growth that we want to see. There's a hole in our bucket. We're not seeing that growth. So we began a discernment process led by the diocese. About and encouraging us all to be praying and asking the Lord what it is that He is saying to us in our different areas of ministry. That was fed into the diocese, and now that has resulted in what's called the revitalisation process, where each parish is being given a consultant who will come and do some assessment of our ministry and our mission and give us some recommendations and training really focused on our discipleship and our mission. So that's the first point of prayer, is for that revitalisation process, that it'll be thorough, and pray that it will bear fruit for discipleship, for mission, for the revitalisation of our churches. So that's number one. Number two, our parish, our Nelson person has asked that for the city, for Nelson City in particular, that we would be praying for the continued work of combined churches in the region. I can't give you any more information than that, but prayer that the churches would work together well. And the final prayer they've asked for is to remember those that are in need in Nelson City, those that are dealing with sickness, and those particularly that are dealing with homelessness. So revitalisation, continued work of combined churches in the region, and for those that are sick and homeless. So that's for Nelson. Now for Blenheim. I'm relatively new to Marlborough. I've been here about 3 years, coming down from Auckland before that. So I can't say a whole lot about the place, but just a couple of things to mention that I've noticed. The first of which is that there is a real mix of people in Blenheim. Blenheim has a kind of a strong colonial past, I guess, so it's a well-established town in that respect. But you have a real mix of demographics. You have a strong elderly population, but you also have quite a strong young family population as well. There's no university in Blenheim, so there's not a lot of young adults apart from maybe some young workers. But what does happen is that a lot of people come back, they do their OE and they come back to raise their families because it's a great kind of family town, I guess, a lot going on for it. The wine industry in Marlborough has brought in a lot of entrepreneurial people and a lot of people from overseas. And so I think that's had a real influence on the culture here, kind of colonial meets this overseas kind of mix of people. And I think that's had a positive effect on the town. I think it's a town that is wanting to move ahead and grow and develop. And there's a lot of positivity around that. It's a real practical people that want to get on and make things happen. So not only does it have a colonial history, but it also has a strong Māori and gospel history as well. Many of you would have heard of the warrior chief Te Raupraha. Now his son, Tamihana, he became a Christian, and there's a whole long story which we won't go into behind that, but a really interesting one if you ever want to look into that. And after becoming a Christian, he came on a missionary trip down to the South Island, to the former enemies of his father, nonetheless. Te Raupraha had done raidings down the South Island before that. When Tamihana was asked whether his father intended to come and attack them again, when they saw him turn up, they wondered what was going on. Tamihana's reply was this: he indeed will not come, for I have indeed come hither to bring an end to warfare and to bind firmly peace by virtue of the words of the gospel of the Lord. And this brought an end to the warfare that was going on before that, brought peace. And there was also this great uptake of people coming to faith during that time because of his missionary work. Mostly Māori at that point, but it was to the point, it was at such a level of people coming to faith where the comment was made that the gospel spread like seeds on the wind. That it just spread like wildfire, basically, through the populations of the South Island. And when I read that, I just was so excited about that. And that's one of my prayers, that we would see something like that again. We would see the gospel spread like seeds on the wind, that it would just spread from person to person, from community to community through Blenheim. And that's really the desire of my heart. That's my prayer. Is kind of twofold. It's for Christians here in Blenheim. We have a strong Christian presence here, but for them not only to be strong in their faith, but to be strong in sharing that faith with others. Because it is the hearing of the word, as we know, that people are able to come to faith. We want people to hear the gospel message, clearly, and have an opportunity to respond to that gospel message. So that's my prayer, that Christians will have the courage and the words, the creativity to present the gospel to the people wherever they find themselves, and to see fruit from that. I'm going to hand over to Barry, and Barry is going to speak about this prayer event, as I mentioned at the beginning, that we have planned, and that's really the main focus for us. So apart from what I've said about preaching the gospel, our main call for prayer is around this prayer event, and as I said, the timing is amazing. So I'll hand over to you, Barry. Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, Greg. I hadn't heard the story told so as well as that before with Tamihana and his legacy. But it's a wonderful foundation, isn't it? Where we come in the here and now, and today, 2023, is in a kind of a critical stage in the church's life, because the signs are not good. The things are going not full steam ahead. The seeds are not entering the wind. Nothing's catching, nothing's taking, and yet it's not through lack of effort or prayer or belief. And those ingredients are all there, and yet we're not seeing things happen. This word breakthrough, which has become quite popular in Christian circles, is often seen in the midst of such kind of endeavors where people put their heads together, they meet together, plan for some sort of breakout of Christianity in some kind of way, some method. And in a way, and then at the end of these events, when you've been to one and you look in the revision and say, is that it? Is that as far as it went? And so I've always been a bit wary of this expression, breakout. It's called a breakout, and then it's break out. You get the seeds in the wind. It's a lovely conception, But what I come to notice, it's a bit like trying to get a Mexican wave to start in Eden Park. That if you notice, it usually starts with the blokes that are in the sun down one end who've got this crazy idea, now's the time. And so they'll start a chant, and then they hope that the chant will be picked up with people on their left who further on round and round. But I've been there when one such event took place, and the chant got started, but then immediately it struck a dull patch in the audience. A group who had the best seats in the house clearly were not up for such frivolity, and certainly were not like, and just wouldn't cooperate. And so the wave went nowhere. It sort of came in with power and just petered out. And then finally, after a little while, there was a sort of a bridge sort of happened, and the guys on the other side of this thing suddenly recognized, hang on, we can take this on. And so it jumped this dull patch and on it went. So I've been sort of thinking about breakouts and that sort of thing. It's to address, I guess, the hole in the bucket, these dull points, these things that sort of squash the seeing the fruit being born. And it's pretty obvious that Satan must have a hand in it, and it's pretty obvious that we have to get a little more clever about upsetting his plans. If he's going to be the dull point in the middle of our plans, then we ought to give him a bit of attention. So it was with that in mind that when I noticed a few months ago that this coming year is a year of Jubilee, which comes up over the 49 years of the talk on the Jewish calendar. And there's an expectation of a great reset for the year of Jubilee. A lot of things go back to the way they ought to be. Slavery release, captives release. There's lots of symbolism involved in what goes on and the intention of the reset. So that's been really intriguing me because it seems like foundational stuff for a revival, that you get a reset to the values and the expectations of our forefathers who understood the power of the gospel, and it was perhaps better known than it is now. So we come up, the other thing I noticed about the year of Jubilee is that it's preceded by a Feast of Trumpets and the Day of Atonement. They're two big items on the calendar that come before it. And the Feast of Trumpets is due the Sunday. And there's some elements to that which are quite important. The Bible doesn't really explain why they're important. It just states it with very few words that the Feast of Trumpets happens, and it involves firstly a sort of a quieting down, a time of reflection on the Lord's goodness and so on. But then it's followed by an outbreak of noise, an eruption of noise, and it's like it's heralding something. And not really being specifically made known what it is being heralding, but it's the blowing of the shofar, the blowing of the trumpets, that indicates that this is like drawing attention to something that's being set up to happen. And so we looked into this a bit. We just realized, well, okay, if we've got the year of Jubilee coming up next year, we can expect an outbreaking, a revival, something that could catch some seeds and send them flying, and we could be part of something quite big. And one of the reasons why we think this maybe it really will is the fact that this is the 70th Jubilee since Joshua took the Israelites across the Jordan. It's 70 times 49 years has happened. And the number 7 has always had a significance. And when you get 70 times 7 times 7, you get a remarkable number. But it's the alignment of these things that gives you just pause to think, well, maybe this is quite auspicious. And that the Lord recognizes that, and he's hoping we'll catch on to that, and that we will catch his drift. But his intention is to reward this year in ways that we've never seen before, or in ways which just get the ball rolling. Well, I want him up for it. So I put it to the Ministers Association, we kindly invited them to talk, that this could be a year for us to gather the leadership in the church and have as many ministers from as many churches as we're able to attend, to climb up one of our local hills. It's a halfway between a hill and a mountain, I guess you call it. In other words, can be done safely by any not particularly fit person. It takes an hour and a quarter, but the view from the top is absolutely spectacular. You just get a huge view of the whole Marlborough area. And while we're up there, we believe that we put together this Feast of Trumpets and its elements and bring into it something of the, just looking at the time, so I'm not thinking of, something of the elements of the Battle of Jericho, that trumpets, the making of loud noise, the shouting of the people and that sort of thing are all very reminiscent of what took place around Jericho, along with the 7 tours around the town, around the city walls before they fell, and then the big loud noise that brought it all down. So we intend to go up the hill, we intend to make a bit of noise, we intend to blow trumpets, we intend to do a number of nursery prayers, and the strength of what we're wanting to do is to lay down blessing. We're learning a bit about that at the moment from different sources. Some of you will have read the Grace Outpouring. It's a story of Father Blenheim, which is in Wales, a retreat centre. Happened onto this some years ago, and there have been remarkable things that happened as a result. But the principal thing is that there is this spirit that has a blocking effect that has been stopping the kind of growth we would expect to see. And so we're going to bypass it. We're going to get our King of Kings to stand over this particular blocker. And we will go around him 7 times with elements of the Lord's Prayer and a number of other little events that we've got planned. So that symbolically we will do all that we can think we can do to let it be known that there's a shake-up going on, that this principality which has had hold over this region, its days are numbered. And for whatever we see on the day, we'll accept, and we will believe for more for the coming year of Jubilee. So that, in a nutshell, that's a bit of a mess, so I've introduced it to you. But pray for our wave. We want to see this wave happen, and we want to see it jump this dull patch, get it out of the way, and look out, keep an eye on the space. Thank you.